Hey all you sexy YouTubers, here's my Jaguar DID design the XF trunk to open automatically when you press the key fob button. Right, so let's look at all the components that make up this trunk hinge. Now in the video that I did on how to get the trunk to open automatically, I replaced my gas shocks. Now 6 months prior to that, I replaced those little springs over there, the trunk springs. And those springs are actually supposed to pull the trunk up and the gas strut is supposed to push it up. So one pulls and one pushes. But it wasn't working so great. And I had very good results when I replaced the gas struts, and I think many of you are aware that when I put the struts on in my video, I had some struts that I bought on AliExpress, but there was a problem with the mechanism over there. The little piece that clips onto the trunk was too big, so they kept popping off over here. And I then went to Jaguar and I just got a genuine set, and they were working great. But I found on cold days, the trunk would open only halfway and it wasn't working too great. And then I saw a video by a guy called Pete Day. So now in Dave's video, he talks about drilling a hole over there, and you'll see that you'll actually have two little tabs like this sitting over there. Now you can see I already have my modification in here. Modification is slightly different to Pete's in that I used a different screw. He used a 19mm screw and I used a 16mm screw, and I actually used a rubber grommet underneath a washer in order to create some sort of give, as it were, and also it would allow me to adjust the screw in or out depending on how strong I need it to be. But I'm going to show you something how this mechanism actually works, because this section over here is what presses against this little thing here. If you look at these little rubber stoppers or plastic stoppers that they actually had in there, you can see a mark on them. That mark is actually from that thing over there pressing against it when you close the trunk. So now I'm going to show you guys how this mechanism actually works when you bring the trunk down. Now you see that little hook, it's getting closer and closer to the screw, the modification that I put in there, but you will actually have your original Jaguar thing over there, and you can see it starts bending the mechanism as you bring it down, and it starts putting pressure on the spring. So the moment you bring the trunk up, it moves away. What I used a 16mm Torx self-tapping screw with a washer underneath it and one of these rubber grommets that you can buy on eBay. They come in a set like that, and you can see an assortment of them. I used these ones here because I felt that they did the trick really, really nicely. One could possibly even use these, and they don't squish very, very easily. They rubber, they'll last a long, long time, but they actually don't squish very easily. And I put mine under quite a lot of strain, as you can see there. But what it allows you is this rubber grommet actually allows you a little bit of leeway in terms of adjustment. Now in Pete Day's video, he used just a washer and a screw, and his screw actually had a bolt on the top, a hex bolt sort of pattern on the top, which protrudes out, and that was putting pressure on this little mechanism over there, which puts pressure on the spring over here. And you can see this thing is actually designed to move this way, and when this moves down, it puts pressure on this spring and it pulls the spring apart, so that when you actually pop your trunk, this spring just wants to get compressed again, and it can't do that because this is still pressing against that. And so what it does is it pops the hood in order to release that tension. I drilled a hole using a First a 2.5mm drill bit, and then I used a 3mm drill bit just so that the screw could actually get in there, because my screw was a little wide. But this is a 16mm screw, and this is a 19mm screw that Pete used in his video. Well, the length is 19mm, so I just wanted to show you guys the difference between a 19mm and a 16mm over there. And as you can see, that's the diffs over there. So I found this to be quite adequate, and the reason I used that is I didn't want the screw to come through the top of the trunk, because that would be disastrous if you did that. So if you look here, you might think that that is the amount of space that you have to play with, but it's not. If you check this side, because this thing contours differently to the actual top of the trunk, this here is the amount of space that you have to play with. That's how much space you actually have to play with. And that's why my rubber grommet actually puts a little bit of space between the screw tip and the end of my trunk. You got to just drill very, very carefully to be sure not to go right through your whole trunk. Just be patient and don't rush it. What I did is I actually just took a washer so that the washer would put some pressure on the rubber grommet, and I put the grommet in. It's how much of the screw will be sticking out when you're actually screwing it into the car, and it makes it fairly safe. I've squished mine a little bit further because it was a little too strong, and it was just chucking the trunk up in a violent way. But luckily this grommet is adjustable, and I just kept tightening it until I was happy with a nice fluid opening motion. As you guys can see, the results are 100% positive every single time you hit the trunk button. Guys, thanks for watching. I hope this video has helped some of you, and you'll find the link to Pete Day's video in the description below. There he actually shows you in more detail how you can actually perform this modification yourself. And I also hope that this puts to rest now all the debates on the Jaguar forums about whether the XF's trunk was designed to open automatically. I think the answer is yes, it was. The mechanisms are there, but they just don't work properly thanks to this little component not doing its job. But with a little finessing, you can actually get yours to open automatically yourself.